It's graduation season, and with that, my sister's getting kicked off my mother's mobile plan. What that means for her is she's switching to Mint Mobile because when you're a college student, you don't have a fat wallet.
She's actually pretty lucky, though, about getting over to Mint Mobile because of the savings and the quality of wireless service that Mint Mobile provides.
Say bye-bye to overpriced wireless plans with jaw-dropping monthly bills and unexpected overages. Mint Mobile is here to rescue.
All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk, text, and delivered on the nation's largest 5G network.
Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along because if you're like me, you've had it since 2007.
I love that we can carry our phone number. This is going to make me seriously want to ditch overpriced wireless and get 3 months of premium wireless service from Mint Mobile for $15 a month. That is ridiculous.
So this year, skip breaking a sweat and breaking the bank. Get your summer savings and shop premium wireless plans at mintmobile.com/booktalk. That's mintmobile.com/booktalk. BOOKTALK.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month 5 GB plan required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customer offer for the first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details.
Between work, errands, and whatever your group chat is spiraling about today, life rarely slows down. But you don't need the perfect moment to escape into something good. Romance is ready when you are, and Galatea puts steamy, swoon-worthy stories right at your fingertips. Galatea is a reading app built for anyone craving a little me time with an endless library of romance stories designed to leave you feeling recharged and fulfilled. We're talking bad boy billionaires, werewolf alphas, forbidden love, slow burn fantasy, and shifter romance. Really everything you could possibly want and more. Personally, I've been using Galatea to wind down after long work days. Sometimes I don't finish until 7 or 8. Oops. And it's the best way to unplug. Way better than doom scrolling. I tell myself just one more chapter and then suddenly it's so late because I just have to know what happens next in these stories. The audio elements that go with these stories keep me hooked and sucked into the story in a way that other types of content just doesn't. Galatea has over 1,000 bestsellers, new chapters dropping daily, and an exclusive catalog of authors you won't find anywhere else. Over 30 million people have already fallen in love with reading on Galatea. Now it's your turn. Right now, Galatea is offering our listeners an extra 25% off on top of an already irresistibly affordable subscription when you go to galatea.com/dating. That's GALATEA.com/dating to indulge in unlimited stories for even less. galatea.com/dating.
USAA knows dynamic duos can save the day, like superheroes and sidekicks or auto and home insurance. With USAA, you can bundle your auto and home and save up to 10%. Learn more and get a quote at USAA.com/bundle. Restrictions apply.
Welcome to Book Talk for Book Talk with Jac and Amy, a literary podcast where we deep dive into the writings of your favorite novels. This spring, we are hosting a book club while we prepare our 10-part literary analysis of Sarah J. Maas's Crown of Midnight. This is Jac.
And I'm Amy. And each week we'll discuss one book from our spring book club roster. By using our literary background, we'll provide our flash analysis of each book, as well as discuss listener thoughts.
This is part 2 of this week's episode, where we're discussing Powerless by Lauren Roberts.
The views expressed by the hosts are entirely their own and in no way represent the thoughts or intentions of the original author. This podcast is a discussion, shared to spark thought and conversation on the characters and themes of this novel. The interpretations presented in this podcast are just a few of many possibilities. Listeners are encouraged to read along and share their own analysis of the text.
Though the hosts speak mostly within the constraints of this book, series spoilers may be discussed with or without warning. Explicit language as well as themes of sex, violence, abuse, depression, self-harm, and death will recur throughout this podcast. Listener discretion is advised. If you're enjoying the podcast, please check out our Patreon for more exclusive content. You can find us at patreon.com/booktalkforbooktalk. I was nervous at one point when the revolutionaries, when they all came in or the resistance members, they all came in and then the one head guy had the king, knife to his throat and he made a threat of like, you listen to us or we're going to come after your princes. And for a moment, I was worried that it was going to go much darker, right? And a la Hunger Games, right? Where we find out that the resistance are just as bad almost as the ones in power.
Mm-hmm.
And, I could see that potentially happening in future books because they definitely kind of laid some breadcrumbs there. But I am also happy that we didn't get full on shit. The resistance is also just as toxic in this scene, in this book, because I needed Peyton to be justified in everything she does for me.
To me, I think the second that Kellum says that, the resistance does kind of die for me. I understand Peyton's reasoning for being involved. She really wants a better world for people like her. Is she naive to think that people wouldn't do whatever needs to be done to make that happen?
Yeah.
Right? She's done whatever needs to be done to survive up until this point.
Yes. I mean, like I said earlier, she doesn't even question him. He's like, hey, by the way, we're the resistance. You steal some keys and get us into the castle. And she's like, bet. Give me a minute. I'll get us there. There's no frontal lobe development to question that moment. Right. The resistance does die there because you can see that there are clues and moments of her being able to, it's messy.
Yeah.
I still am happy because I can see that that's going to be probably a larger theme in books to come, that like the resistance is also messy and that she needs to go in there. But I'm happy that that wasn't a huge plot moment in this book because she needs to be consumed with her betrayal of the princes and not the idea of, oh my God, I've been betrayed too.
Yeah. And her best friend just died.
I know.
The only family she's had for the past 5 years was just brutally murdered right in front of her by someone she already hates.
Yeah.
Like, there are more important things going on right now.
Yeah. I did appreciate as like the scene was playing out and Peyton's trying to run away, and then all of a sudden there's a figure in the road and it's the king, and he just kind of happened to be there. I just kind of a moment I was like, you know what? I respect that, Lauren. Don't explain it to me. Like, don't explain how he got there. I don't need it. I'm here with you.
Yep. Like, sometimes fate just works in mysterious ways, and I'm just going to take it.
Sometimes shit's convenient.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
That's okay.
That was a moment of shit was convenient. I'm okay.
That's called a good day.
Or a bad day, because she almost died also.
Yeah, true.
They could go either way. All right, I think it's time for some comments.
Sure. Let me take a sip.
Yeah, me too. One listener had so many feelings about this book that they sent me their Goodreads review screenshots.
Oh, wow. So a lot of people liked Kai. Let's see. My favorite comment so far. Where is it? Damn it. I missed it.
Is it love a bad boy who's with golden retriever energy?
Yes. Domineering man with golden retriever energy. That was probably my favorite. Yeah.
That was funny. And it's true. He is such a golden retriever. He's a golden retriever stuck in a Doberman's body.
It's so true. I do. And a lot of other people appreciated something we already said too, which is I like that Peyton doesn't have powers.
Yeah. I like that their romantic relationship doesn't really pop off in this book.
Which I think is necessary. So let's talk about that intentionality.
Yeah.
They don't really share a kiss or really express affection.
Yeah.
Until the truth is laid bare that she is an ordinary and Kai killed her father. And if they had kissed, if they had spoken like intention or affection, the relationship would have then died. But because there was no relationship, it could not die.
Ooh, so, Amy, wow.
It also comes down to consent, right? Can you consent if you don't actually know?
Yeah. And I mean, and that would be Peyton on this time who would be withholding the ability for consent. I like it because I feel like romance is just nowhere near Peyton's head. I think that she's enjoying talking to these two men, and whether she wants to admit it or not, like she's enjoying talking to them. We do know that Peyton kind of manipulates Kit, charms him a little bit, tries to get him to drop his guard a little bit more, so there's that element there, but she genuinely enjoys their company. And it just, even though there's that romantic element, it did not, like, this wasn't the book for it. Like, her journey was definitely her own journey of trying to survive. And what does it mean to survive as an ordinary in this world, and having to deal with men, these two men who represent everything she hates, right? The king, and then having to come to terms that they are not the king, and that there might be hope coming about this in a different way. Like, Peyton didn't even entertain the idea of, hey, maybe if I talk to Kit, like, what if we don't bombard the castle? What if I charm this man until I, get him to understand and see reason? Yeah. But, I feel like her journey is just so elsewhere that the romance was very secondary to me.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I also would say that with Peyton and the way her life has gone, is she even capable of loving more than one person at a time?
Oof. No.
I genuinely don't think she is.
Yeah.
It was her father only, and then it was Adina only. And
there's
Adina
a vacancy.
Now there's a vacancy. Adina had to die.
Yeah.
In order for Peyton to have capacity.
Yeah.
Because survival and one love is already too much. I mean, she forgot Adina.
Survival means one other person. Like, she needed Adina to survive, and Adina needed her to survive. Survival equals one partnership at a time. And she was just trying to survive these games, which is why she partnered with Kai when she needed to. She knew how to partner with people one person at a time, but you're right. She very much is like, I can only handle this much.
Yeah.
And this much is all I can deal with right now. And anyone else can step away. She never promised anything to these guys. That's my thing, is that she never promised anything to Kit. She charmed him. That's on him. That's his fault.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, for both men, maybe less Kai than Kit, but they both come to expect something from the pretty girl who's nice to them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even in Kai's bedroom, she walks away. She opens her mouth as if to say something, and she chooses, like, nope, I can't engage anymore. And then Kai is the one who kind of throws a temper tantrum at the ball and, drinks too much and doesn't want to, and dances with all the other women. And it reminds me of, I think we should just, okay, I'm going to say two things. One, we should celebrate more women manipulating men or just existing. And, it's men's fault.
Men reading too much into a woman existing.
Do you know the name? I'm not going to say it correctly, but Coach Bill Belichick or something like that. He's one of the football coaches, I think, for one of the universities. He's a really big deal in the football world and the ESPN world. He's an old white man. Turns out his girlfriend is, I think she's 25, 26, but they've been dating for a while. There was an interview.
That's even more sketch.
I support her, because now people are like, I think she's manipulating him and is using him for his money. Good.
He's the one who probably used his money to attract her.
Yeah. And if a woman turns it, Una reverses it and is the one in charge, because there was an interview that he was doing. And in the interview, it was mentioned that the interviewer wasn't allowed to really bring up anything to do with how they met. And then the interviewer brings up with how they met. And she comes out from behind and was like, we will not be answering that. And then Bill was like, I can't answer that. I'm sorry. And I'm just like, you know what? Fucking do it. And then people are like, it's so weird, out of these several years that she's been with him, she now has an $8 million real estate portfolio. Girl, get it. Should we do a welfare check to see if he's okay? No.
If he's showing up to games, he's fine.
He's whipped. He found a woman who can just put him in his place. And I kind of feel that way. Not that Peyton did that, right? There's nothing here that she's doing. There's no maliciousness from other than Peyton trying to get the keys and let the people in, right?
Right.
But it's just what happens when two guys feel like they have chemistry with a woman.
And feel entitled to her time.
Yes.
And create their own false narratives and expectations when nothing has been verbally promised or said.
She hasn't done anything.
Men put themselves in those situations.
And no one more so than Kit. Because at least with Kai, there was mutual chemistry there.
Right.
But he still was guilty of, I'm so into her, and she has done nothing. She tried to kill him. She tried to stab him a couple times.
How many times has she held a dagger to his throat?
Right?
Many.
And then like when they're doing their sexy arrows and they're, he's the one who started feeling her up. And what does she do? She barely touches him.
Yeah. I loved that contrast.
Yes.
Of just like one finger barely touching him.
Yes.
Whereas like he had his hand on her stomach and on her arms and whatnot.
But like, isn't that just such a great metaphor for what is life, that men feel like they have to make these more overt moves, these more louder, bolder things. And that's what it means. And a woman can just literally touch you with just a single finger. And suddenly it's like, this is so intense. This is the hottest thing anyone's ever done. Right? Like, it's just very telling of, that's another theme and another commentary that I feel like this book does. Whether that was Lauren's intention, I don't know, but that's what I see heavily is it, you're getting a lot of the Vampire Diaries, Stefan, Damon love triangle in here, but it's totally, just two guys who feel entitled to her time.
Yeah. So let's talk about the descriptor of love triangle. I didn't feel like it was trying to be a love triangle.
I mean, neither did I with Damon and Stefan. There was only Damon for me. But I really wish you had watched Vampire Diaries.
I watched like the first season.
There's so much more. So much more for you to watch. I think that some of the people's negatives was the love triangle. And I agree. I don't think it was a love triangle. I think it was two men who felt entitled to her time. Only one she actually liked.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, but let's also look at it from a power dynamic, not just a gender dynamic, right? Because that has its own power dynamics, but royals and a slummer.
Yes.
You really think she can say no to either prince?
No.
Right?
I mean,
she's going to try, but at the end of the day, she's participating in this competition. She wants to survive. Submitting herself to the whim of princes is part of the survival.
Let's talk about how she meets Kit. Outside her bedroom. He was standing outside her bedroom. What is, I don't like the idea of a random man outside my bedroom standing out there waiting for me. Like, that's creepy as hell. Now you could argue maybe he was there to see his brother, but like they was close enough for her to run into him. That's too close. And that itself is a threatening aspect of man outside your bedroom. Now, then she realizes quickly, shit, that's not the man, that's the prince. Anything she does, like, he could do anything and she's at his whim.
Right. And she's just barely made it into the castle at that point. She's barely touched what she has lacked for the last 5 years, which is security.
Yep.
And it's a false security, but it's security for a certain amount of time. To piss off the prince is to risk that security all over again. She's not going to do that. She needs to eat.
She wasn't allowed to not look him in the eye. Before he starts complaining about that, before he starts shouting me like, well, why won't you look me in the eye? Like, why does she have to? Why does she owe you her eyes? Why does she have to do anything? Because you are the prince and you get to tell her what to do, and you can be as sweet and as charming and as like, I'm just a nice guy. That's what Kai is. He is that quote unquote nice guy. And he is meant to, I think at the very end in the epilogue, he says, I was meant to be the nicest king in history. And it's like, this is the epitome. That's another fucking thing we're going to get into, is the nice guy concept, the nice guy trope. Well, he was just a nice guy. Nice men assume things. Nice men assume your time. Nice men assume that because they're so nice and because they're being nice to you, well, why wouldn't you love them? Why wouldn't you want them? He's a man of power. He's a man who's attractive. He's a man who's nice. So you owe your affection to me.
Right. Because he's going to be the next king. He obviously is a catch. Everyone should want him.
And not once did he think about, let's say hypothetically, she was attracted to him, or she felt like she did owe it to him, and there was some kind of romantic relationship that was picked up from there. What is her future? There is none, right?
Right.
There's no hope for her to be with him and be the next queen. Like, his dad wouldn't allow it. Like, I think he knows his father well enough to know that's not an option. Right. So why should she entertain any of this if not for his own romantic whimsy?
Right. And well, and that's true for Kai as well, by the way.
Absolutely.
And she's attracted to him.
Yep.
There is no future. If she even lives through the trials.
Yes. She's going back to the slums.
She's going back to the slums. Even if she hadn't killed the king, if Adina hadn't died, like, if the tragedy of the final trial didn't happen and she managed to survive it, she'd go back to living in a garbage fort in an alley.
That's so sad, but it's true. That's just the way that you describe it, but it's true. It's a garbage fort. Yeah.
And Kai would come and pester her every now and then, and she wouldn't give him the time of day because there's no future.
And she never entertains a future with either of them. That's why she doesn't entertain a present. Now, she can't fight her attraction to Kai, but there is the lack of conversation and the lack of mental narrative, to me, shows an understanding of the lack of reality of either relationship.
Right. If she really thought there was a chance, the narrative would tell us that.
Yes. And she never entertains it. Like yes, she's attracted to Kai, but she never entertains even remotely being with either one. And the lack thereof is significant.
That's why I don't think it's a love triangle.
I agree. Okay, so I'm going to read someone's Goodreads that they sent us. It's a little long, so. Oh my god, this was so boring. Love me a good magical trial type book, but this was not successfully done one. The trials somehow managed to be boring. There was barely any content to any trials. They were glossed over and then always ended with just and fight. All the interactions between Peyton and Kai were copy/paste over and over again and didn't add any content, character building, or otherwise. So many scenes were replayed over and over again, and the banter was not bantering. It was stupid. The conversation about blueberries almost DNF'd it right there. Pacing. Do I want to talk about that before I keep reading about their other stuff? Or do I read the whole thing and then we...
I read the whole thing. I have many thoughts. I'll try to write them down while you go.
We could take pause. Take a pause.
So let's talk about the trials first.
Yes.
I didn't care about the trials, and I didn't care that it was glossed over and that we didn't get a lot of details because I'm not there for the trials. I'm there for the characters. I'm there for the character journey. So for me personally, okay, whatever. I mean, and that's just me. And part of it is because if I had to figure out trials, which unfortunately I'm thinking about a book with trials right now, I don't know that I could do any better.
I think that Lauren glossed over them in a very specific and intentional way. If it's specific and intentional, then why? The question then becomes why? Is it because it's just not in her wheelhouse and she's not good at doing it? Or is there kind of other reasons behind it? I don't know when this listener read this book. I know when this book came out, there was a lot of hype behind it of Hunger Games meets ACOTAR, or, like one of those, like Hunger Games meets blah, blah, blah. And I know a lot of people went into this expecting Hunger Games. So I don't want to imagine that was her expectation was Hunger Games. I think you and I with this book club, we've been reading a lot of trials in a lot of different, in a short amount of time. A lot of trials happening in our books.
Yeah.
And we've gotten a bunch of tastes of different trials. But like you said, the trials this book wasn't about the trials. The book was about the social commentary. And the trials highlighted the social commentary that it needed to, right?
Right. The other aspect I would say is the trials were crafted purely so that Kai could win.
Yes.
And so what do we see? We see things that Kai has already done before.
Not just Kai would win, but Kai could be abused in the same time because he doesn't like heights.
Yeah.
He can't do these, what happens when his powers are removed. I think that you have these 3 trials and it all ends with, okay, now fight. Yeah, that's fair. Just kind of, how are you supposed to end a trial? And Lauren chose and fight. That's a valid thing. If you're not a fan of that, that's totally valid. Yeah, each trial was crafted to both challenge Kai and make sure he wins.
Yeah. The one thing I will say that did bother me as I was reading, both in the trials and just interactions in general, the one thing I kept thinking in book 1 was, why is no one interrupting Kai and Peyton? They got a lot of time. And nobody interrupts, nobody comments on it. It's not until much later in the novel that the king is like, you can't do that. Right?
Yeah.
There were definitely times where I'm like, this feels like this is the time to interrupt this conversation.
You know how I feel about conversations where they're like, and I opened my mouth to say something and then it ends up being taken away, that moment. I agree. I think that there were definitely moments that the king would have interrupted. Like, why did the king let things get between both his sons, right? Not just one, both of them. Why did he let it go on that long?
Yeah.
I would have liked, if there was a reason, I would have liked that to have been said at the end. Like, you know, would have liked maybe in Kai's point of view, the king would have been like, can you just please fuck her and get it over with type thing. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Or maybe the king revealed that if I let my sons get close to you, I'd get closer to the resistance. You know what I mean? Like something, but I agree. Like, why would this powerful king who knows that she's ordinary let her be near his sons for so long?
Right. It does get explained in book 3. I will say that.
Okay. Well, I look forward to that.
And now a word from our sponsors. As most people can guess, commuting in LA sucks. And so I've started taking the train. And the best thing about that is I get to read my romance books on the go.
And if you're like me and you're not commuting, you like to stay up till 2 a.m. reading Galatea, trying to get one more chapter.
Galatea is a reading app where anyone craving a little me time can dive into a library of romance stories that leave you feeling recharged and fulfilled.
There are over 1,000 bestsellers to choose from, and if you can't figure out what you want, they have shifter romance, bad boy billionaire, forbidden love, werewolf alpha, slow burn fantasy, teen drama, and so much more.
Galatea is home to original series and standalone stories with an exclusive catalog of best-selling authors, with new chapters dropping daily, so there is always something new to explore.
Don't worry, you're not going to be alone. Over 30 million people have fallen in love with reading on Galatea. Join now to indulge in stories that make you feel like yourself again.
Right now, Galatea is offering our listeners an extra 25% off on top of an already irresistibly affordable subscription when you go to galatea.com/booktalk.
That's GALATEA.com/BOOKTALK to indulge in unlimited stories for even less.
That's galatea.com/booktalk.
I think you're on mute.
Workday starting to sound the same?
I think you're on mute.
Find something that sounds better for your career on LinkedIn. With LinkedIn Job Collections, you can browse curated collections by relevant industries and benefits, like flex PTO or hybrid workplaces, so you can find the right job for you. Get started at linkedin.com/jobs. Finding where you fit. LinkedIn knows how.
Whatever the occasion, effortless elegance is right this way. Because Hilton brings you new ways to stay courtesy of the Nomad London. And it doesn't stop at award-winning dining in a space draped in velvet and illuminated by vintage chandeliers. No, this day goes beyond with unparalleled personalized service and attentive hospitality. Oh, and did we mention the Nomad London can be booked using your Hilton Honors points at Hilton.com? Hilton, for the stay.
Are your business expenses playing hide and seek? With Uber for Business, the small spends that slip through the cracks, like rides and meals, go right where you need them. Because it integrates with leading expense platforms, you can say goodbye to surprise costs, missing dollars, or chasing receipts. Everything's track downable. Uber for Business. Make small steps that make a big impact. Learn more at uber.com/small steps.
All right, I'm going to continue reading their Goodreads. Pacing, people, pacing. These romantasy authors need some new editors. We didn't even get to the meat of the main storylines, i.e. the resistance and whatnot, until 75% in, which can be fine, but you better have me very entertained up until that point. I was not. I have also heard critiques that this heavily borrowed... let's talk pacing. I feel like they're making a lot of good points, and I don't want to be like, I disagree to every single one, because everyone's interpretation and their feelings to each book is their own and entirely valid.
Right.
I think that it's fair to say that the whole thing with the resistance didn't happen until much later in the book. It kind of reminds me a little bit of our discussion with Quicksilver of why is it that this thing, which would be a plot thing, happened a lot farther than I would expect. So I think that's a very valid question to bring up when you talk about a classical structure of a book.
I can see that. I guess I don't have strong feelings, but if I were an editor, I would also say if we want the failure of the resistance to hit harder,
Yeah.
we need to be with them longer.
I agree.
We need to care about them more, and that
Yeah.
requires time.
I agree. There, the resistance failing and everyone dying didn't do anything for me other than cause chaos. And if the goal was just to cause chaos, but I don't really care about the people who died, you did it. If you want us to die, if you want us to care, then absolutely, like what you said, they need to move that up sooner. All right, continue. I also heard critiques that this heavily borrowed from other big fantasy/romantasy books, and I'm not usually in favor of thinking like that. There's only so many tropes and so many ways to tell a story, and usually I'm cool with it, but OMG, this was pretty bad. And again, somehow the trials were borrowed from other series, ended up boring. First trial, Hunger Games. Second, not sure, but it's out there. Third, Goblet of Fire. If you want an example of a well-paced magical trials type romantasy book, then go to The Serpent and Wings of Nights. The trials were creative, the stakes were high. I was on edge of my seat the whole time, and there was no waste of space.
I mean, Serpent and the Wings of Night is just exceptional.
Well, Serpent and the Wings of Nights was about the trials.
Yeah, it was about the trials. The trials were the whole point.
Yeah. And like you and I said, these trials never felt like the whole point. It was the themes that were more heavily involved, because you also don't get those heavy themes happening in Serpent and the Wings of Night.
Exactly. If the trials were the point, there would be more of them.
Yeah.
And they would be more intense, which if that's what you want, you're entitled to that.
Absolutely.
I loved the trials in Serpent and the Wings of Night. I don't love the trials in Powerless, but I didn't need to love the trials in Powerless. I needed to love Kai and Peyton and their interactions.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, the last one definitely was giving me Goblet of Fire vibes, but
so was the end of Quicksilver.
Was it? There's a
maze.
Same thing. It was a maze. Yeah. It was it's hard. It's hard when things are done. Like, it's not like they had one of the big things with Goblet of Fire is that there were different tasks within the maze that people the movies forget about, where it's like, there was a riddle that he had to solve. There was other things happening within the maze, that it wasn't just a maze and them running around. So, but like you said, Quicksilver, that's a maze. It's mazes exist, and I don't think that there was enough difference for me, for the Harry Potter comparison, for the Hunger Games comparison, for me to be okay with it, me personally.
So let me speak in favor of this Goodreads.
Yeah.
If you don't believe Peyton and her character, if you don't believe Kai and his journey, if you don't believe the chemistry that they have, and you're not interested in the interactions they have, does the book have anything else going for it?
Then no. Yeah.
No, these two, and that's what makes it romantasy. These two are necessary to ground us, to care about the socioeconomic commentary, and to be okay with the world that Lauren Roberts has shaped.
Yes.
And to, tolerate the trials.
Yeah, that's a totally fair point. If they don't suck you in, then none of it else is going to.
And none of it matters.
Yeah. Then the trials don't matter to me. I was like, whatever, that's
it's just a thing.
Yeah, go dance in the forest again, that's fine.
I actually appreciated that the trials were not the focus.
Yeah.
Because I liked the characters. I wanted their journey.
I like that there was a ball before each trial.
I got
different dresses. We got different dramas. We got different things happening each time. I was thrilled with that. I personally was so much more hooked on the social commentary. Everything else was a breeze for me, but like you said, I think you said it extremely well. If the characters did not bring you in, then none of it was going to. Then there's nothing else that would.
Yep.
Someone else says that the ending felt too rushed, like Game of Thrones season finale. I have been noticing a lot more fantasy books doing this, where there is no beat after. And I don't know if that's a trend. I don't know what's going on, but a lot more fantasy books are just like,
there's a lack of resolution.
Yeah, it just ends at a like boom. And I caught that too. And I don't know how I feel about it, because even in my own book, I'm having a fucking resolution, like at the end. Like I personally prefer a Harry, Hermione, and Ron going to the train at the end of the year saying goodbye,
Yeah. I do think, I don't know if it's strictly a romantasy thing, especially when the book is part of a, start of a trilogy or the second book. I think there is a fear because the romantasy genre is becoming so much bigger that people won't wait for the next book, won't come back for the next book, won't be excited.
Yeah.
And so the cliffhanger, I mean, think about Kate Golden. I love her, but her books have to, she ended each of her books with a cliffhanger.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I just think that's what a lot of books are doing right now.
And for me personally, my criticism to the modern style of ending on a cliffhanger, you can still end on a cliffhanger and you can still have resolution. I'm only referencing Harry Potter because I feel like it's a very universal book. And, as much as we disdain J.K. Rowling, she has no home here. She did a great job with the series. And let's look at, spoiler, Dumbledore dies. That was a huge cliffhanger. Yeah. That was a huge cliffhanger. And we got that resolution. At the end of every book, you still had some major cliffhangers. And, Cedric died, Voldemort's back. Yeah. Sirius died, the order, has begun. Like all these things have happened, and you still have that 2 chapters to make that resolution. I think that's more classically like a classic book, right? Like that's a very classical structure. I think that's been the move has been away from that in the style and the trends. I personally don't care for that. I like that 2 chapter resolution.
That's fair.
Expect that in my shit. Okay, so this is the book that people were saying that was Powerless and Red Queen. People, you and I never read Red Queen. Red Queen is by Victoria Aveyard. And I remember when Powerless came out, a couple people messaged us and was like, what are your thoughts on Powerless plagiarizing Red Queen? And I was like, damn, that's a heavy word.
Yeah.
I've never read both, so I have no opinion. And at this point, you and I have not read Red Queen. Maybe we should do that sometime. Let's see. Powerless I'm looking at a Reddit thread. Plagiarized Red Queen. Lauren Roberts plagiarized the entirety of Red Queen. The perfect quote to describe this book. Your manuscript is both good and original, but the part that is good is not original, and the part that is not original is not good. From this world build, and that's from Dr. Samuel Johnson. They quoted someone. From the world building to the scenes to the character traits, she didn't miss a thing. I got so angry while reading this book. 80% of this book was written by Aveyard and 20% was stolen by Susan Collins. Let's see. Okay, I'll give you the book description. You tell me if it's Red Queen or Powerless. Poor girl is a thief for a living. She has a sister that is a seamstress. Poor girl meets one of the princes by stealing coins from their pocket. She thought he was a normal guy, but found out later who he was. After a very public event witnessed by many people, poor girl from the slums is invited to live in a castle. There are two prince brothers. One is heir. The other is the spare. They're both pining for her. Both brothers have different mothers, but from the same father. While at the castle, they also train her to fight along with the princes. One brother asks her to the ball, while the other brother, the one she stole from, whisks her away from the middle of the night for a private dance to teach her how to dance with the brother. Girl decides to join a rebel organization while living in the castle. The rebel organization is led by people who don't have any magical abilities as a way to tackle the oppressive monarch. I mean, I can keep going, but there's a mean girl, but apparently that's like both books. Or let's see, towards the end of the book, the main character is stuck in an arena fighting for her life. The rebel organization bombs this as well, thus giving her the ability to escape the castle and escape the arrest of working with said rebel organization. The main character is also exposed for being red/ordinary.
So I don't know. I haven't read Red Queen, and the thing with any art and any story, and we've talked about this before, there's only so many stories to tell.
Yeah.
Now, did Lauren Roberts read the Red Queen and say, I want to pay homage to Red Queen with my own story and my own characters?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. Did she ever read Red Queen? Maybe not. Like, we don't know.
Yeah. I mean, until you and I have read Red Queen and we can have, like, I don't know, a more educated opinion on it, I do get very stuck on like this. Like, I feel like plagiarism is such a stern term, and maybe because you and I have been scared shitless of the term plagiarism, where it's like, we come from the world of academia, and if you plagiarize, you are like expelled. Basically, you are done for.
Yeah, and the use of the word plagiarized is incorrect.
Yes.
Right? In this context, the plagiarism is to copy word for word. Now, if she literally stole Victoria Aveyard's manuscript and tried to pass it off as her own, with
Yeah.
different, like, just
If the same
Control F,
conversations were
find-
happening.
right. Control, find, replace names with this name, that would be a different conversation. But to hit the same beats with the same scaffolding doesn't necessarily necessitate plagiarism if they accomplish different things. And I don't know. I haven't read Red Queen.
I don't know. Does Red Queen have the same social commentary as Powerless? Because Powerless has, this book is about social commentary. This book is not about the romance. This book is not about anything else other than social commentary to me. I can't tell you about Red Queen. I haven't read it. I haven't had any specific experience. Now, both sound similar, but again, let's play this game of girl, heroine lead, male lead, female lead, doesn't know that they're special or chosen, finds out they're special and chosen, introduce Shadow Daddy, literally when we were talking about Quicksilver, we were like, oh, well, here's the nightmare that she wakes him up from, except it's not a nightmare, it's the Quicksilver. Or, here's this moment that's happening. I think romantasy is so it's so incestual, that it's kind of hard not for there to be those similar beats, especially if you're hitting tropes, especially if both are YA. I think that ends up being really hard that both are YA. And then you have the fact that Hunger Games is a perfect masterpiece. That's something else. It's social commentary mixed with trials that does both extremely well. It's about the trials. It's about the social commentary. It is a different beast. However, it is also dystopian. You don't have a fantasy element that you're dealing with. So things are different there.
I reserve judgment until I read The Red Queen.
Yeah.
If I read The Red Queen.
Maybe we'll do it for next book club or something. I don't know.
Okay.
Amy doesn't look thrilled.
We just are around Victoria Aveyard too much.
We are. Okay. I don't think people understand the lore of this, and I will include this. We have been living our life next to Victoria for a long time now.
Yeah.
A solid 6 months. We go to the same events. We hang out with the same people. We're in the same literal dinner group with her and other people. And yet
we never interact.
We've never interacted with her once. It's the weirdest thing. Who knows? Sure, she's lovely. Standing across from her has been lovely. I mean, that happened just the other weekend when we were we were at the book fair and you were just like, oh, by the way, there's Victoria. And I'm like, what, again?
Oh man,
who was not even, oh, by the way, there's Victoria across the way. There's Victoria
she's across the table from me,
who's talking to the person who's sitting next to us.
Yeah,
I know. I don't know if it'd be messy if we covered her or not, because I
feel like it would.
Yeah, we're too intertwined with her, even though she has no idea who we are.
Yeah, that's fine. We can keep it that way.
As if us doing a podcast episode on her would change that. Watch, that's the thing that blows us up.
Oh no.
We get super viral for that episode. Yeah. I'm going to go back to Happy Hermit Lily, when she was talking about SJM in the third Crescent City book. She said to herself, what is it that the author was SJM trying to accomplish? Did they accomplish it? And I really feel like those are words I'm trying to live by.
Yeah.
There's a difference in the way that you and I are talking about books this season than we have in past seasons. And that's because we're trying to do better of what are the themes? What are they trying to accomplish?
Yeah. Yeah. And when I look at the themes, I feel like Lauren Roberts accomplishes it.
Agreed. Now, who the hell knows if those were what she was trying to accomplish or not, but that's what we see and that's what we feel like is done.
Yeah. There's not a theme I would pinpoint that I would say that didn't really land. That I can think of, at least.
I mean, maybe if someone was looking for romance in this book, they could say that didn't land. Let me look up the things people didn't like. Keep going.
The other thing I will say is that I don't think Powerless is as good as Reckless and Fearless for different reasons.
Oh, you think the other two books are better?
Yes. I think that Lauren Roberts evolves because Powerless is her debut novel. I also will say from a prose standpoint, I can tell this is YA because it says too many things.
That's one of the things people in the comments have been saying quite a bit is the simplicity and the prose that they're not a fan of.
It's not that it's too simple. It's that she explains too much. So, for example, something will happen and then Peyton will summarize how that makes her feel. But I don't need Peyton to tell me how she feels because I can already tell through the narrative.
And if that's YA or if that's because this is Lauren's first book, I don't know. but
Yeah.
it is a fair critique to have.
She does it in the other 2 books.
Okay, well, then that's a critique to have.
Yeah.
That's a style. That's a
It's
style.
a style thing, and I don't think it's necessary. But I will also say the same thing about SJM, right?
Yeah.
She was better about leaving things unsaid in A Court of Thorns and Roses than she
Agreed.
was in Crescent City.
She said too many things in Crescent City. Too many words were said in Crescent City. Yeah, a lot of people felt like it was ChatGPT wrote YA book tropes.
That makes me sad.
People are really hating on this book.
I
The over stabby FMC. I do get over a very stabby FMC of like, I think I mentioned this before in previous seasons where it's like, I'm a stabby woman and I do stabby things and stab. So you do have a very classic stabby FMC, but
it didn't, I mean, I guess it didn't bother me. I felt like it was true to her character and true to her circumstance.
yeah.
I think, again, I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. If you don't love the characters,
Yes.
you're not going to love this book.
Yeah.
I feel like I really love how tortured Kai is throughout all 3 novels. He is a tortured soul. It only gets more intense, and I hurt for him, and I love it.
Yeah.
I just do.
I love Peyton because I want to speak to billionaires and men, let's be real, in power and these power positions who even in our government and in today that I want to be like, look me in the eye and tell me that you are supposed to be a Christian individual who believes in love and compassion and yet are choosing all these things that hurt people daily. How can you believe that? So for me, I love Peyton because I'm riled up and I feel like she does what I wish I could do.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other, going back to the allegory aspect of this. I don't know if Red Queen is an allegory for religion. I feel like this is an allegory for religion.
Wait, can you talk a little bit more about that? I know it sounds like we were wrapping up, but it was such an interesting thing that you said.
So if you look at the elite society, in my mind, it is equivalent to organized religion. And it's equivalent in the sense of, and this is not all religion. This is not all religious people.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, take that with a grain of salt. It's really about the group of religious people who believe only they will be saved. Only they are the only good ones.
Yep, yep.
Only they know the truth.
Yeah.
Only they deserve goodness, and how they treat other people around them, and don't emulate the morals that they tout.
Yeah.
That is the elite society versus the ordinaries.
Yes.
That are the zealots versus the rest of the world. It really wraps up really nicely in the 3rd book, in the epilogue. Because one thing you will notice in this series is that there are times when people die, you get their perspective after death.
Oh. Oof.
And so in the epilogue of the 3rd book, you get a character's perspective after death.
Wow.
And how this isn't what they were promised. This isn't what they were told. But they thought they were good.
Oh, that is totally an allegory.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So you can see.
Yeah.
Like, that's when it hit me of like, oh, this is about religious fervor versus living by the morals that you
people
preach.
Thinking that they're blessed because they are chosen and they're in this position because God has blessed them. I mean, that's the same thing where the head of England, you know, they consider them the head of the church, Queen Elizabeth, King Charles, and everyone past is like, oh, well, you're there because God placed you. You're there because God saw it fit. I mean, and whether remove God and say plague.
Right.
I mean,
exactly.
and you have the fact that they said,
thank
by
the plague.
Yeah.
Yeah. They say thank the plague, by the plague.
Yeah. Replace God with plague, and you have the plague now deciding who is blessed and who is not. Ooh, chills. So does Red Queen do that? I don't know.
I have
but
no
what
idea.
I can tell you is that Hunger Games does not. What I can tell you is that Hunger Games doesn't do that. What I can say is that the Goblet of Fire does not have that moment. I mean, kind of, Jesus comes back in the form of Voldemort if you want to get into it. But that's also not Jesus. I don't know. That's more of like a Nazi Hitler situation over there. That's what this book brings.
Yeah.
I cannot speak to Red Queen. I cannot speak to other things, but I can speak to Hunger Games. I can, even though I haven't done analysis on it, I can tell you that I don't see a lot of religious, from what I remember, the same thing that's here. But maybe there is, maybe there isn't. But I love a book that you do it again. Like, I think that this book is hitting themes of things that are necessary. If I'm willing to read my 15 million mafia romance, I'm willing to read another book about saying, hey, fuck society.
Yeah. Trials. And, we read the same things over and over again.
Yeah. And
we still enjoy it.
It's funny because you're like, trials. And I'm like, I wasn't even thinking about the trials. I was thinking about the fuck society. Fuck this elitism. Fuck this wealth disparity. Like, yeah. I want more of that. I want the next generation of readers reading that. I want that shoved down their throats so fucking hard that the men of Gen Z stop fucking voting for these oppressors.
I highly encourage reading the next 2 books because you see a process of disillusionment. You see a process of it's very good.
Okay. I don't have a book to listen to because the next book we're doing is Bargain with a Vampire. And I know. We're reading. That's going to be the first book we've read for book club.
I know. I'm starting to listen to Crown of Midnight.
Something to listen to just to get by. Yeah. I think that'll be once I get through Powerless, I might start Crown of Midnight so I can remember anything from that.
I think that's a good idea. I started listening to it on Libby so that you could listen to it on
Oh my god, thank you. Let's
Audible.
be real. I mean, now that you've hyped up Powerless and the other 2 books, I'm gonna get through those and then do Crown of Midnight, which I will regret doing in this order.
Probably.
Live, laugh, love.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Book Talk for Book Talk with Jac and Amy. We encourage you to rate and subscribe to our show on your preferred podcast listening platform. Next week, we will be discussing The Vampire's Bargain by Jasmine Walt.
We would love to hear your thoughts based on today's conversation. If you'd like to submit your take on any of the books we plan to discuss later this spring, please be sure to follow us on Instagram where we ask for listener submissions.
If you're enjoying the podcast, please visit our website, booktalkforbooktalk.com, to view our latest merch and learn about supporting the show through Patreon or Venmo. You can also follow us on TikTok, Instagram, or YouTube at the handle BookTalk for Book Talk. Bye! As most people can guess, commuting in LA sucks. And so I've started taking the train. And the best thing about that is I get to read my romance books on the go.
And if you're like me and you're not commuting, you like to stay up till 2 a.m. reading Galatea, trying to get one more chapter.
Galatea is a reading app where anyone craving a little me time can dive into a library of romance stories that leave you feeling recharged and fulfilled.
There are over 1,000 bestsellers to choose from, and if you can't figure out what you want, they have Shifter Romance, Bad Boy Billionaire, Forbidden Love, Werewolf Alpha, Slow Burn, Fantasy, Teen Drama, and so much more.
Galatea is home to original series and standalone stories with an exclusive catalog of best-selling authors, with new chapters dropping daily, so there is always something new to explore.
Don't worry, you're not going to be alone. Over 30 million people have fallen in love with reading on Galatea. Join now to indulge in stories that make you feel like yourself again.
Right now, Galatea is offering our listeners an extra 25% off on top of an already irresistibly affordable subscription when you go to galatea.com/booktalk.
That's GALATEA.com/BOOKTALK to indulge in unlimited stories for even less.
That's galatea.com/booktalk.